Hello, everyone, and welcome to Education in the Diaspora. My name is Tisha, and this is the platform where people who have studied abroad share their experiences and give us tips on how you can apply for schools and scholarships. Okay, and today we are highly privileged to have a very special guest here. We have a math queen here. We are privileged because it's not every day that we meet a mathematician, of course, and especially a female mathematicians. And if we have one here, then indeed we are privileged. Okay, so let's go to the introduction of my guest. My guest for today is an AIMS Google AI postdoc fellow at AIMS Ghana. Prior to this, she graduated with a PhD in mathematics from the University of Glasgow in the UK and a postgraduate diploma in mathematics from the International Center for Theoretical Physics, ICTP, in Italy. She also obtained an MSc in Mathematical Sciences from AIMS Ghana. AIMS is African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, and her undergraduate degree was in Mathematics and Economics from the University of Ghana. Aside all these, she's the founder of Firm Africa Math, an NGO that promotes female African mathematicians. Their mission is to inspire young girls about the diverse career options available when you study mathematics. They do this through interviews with math queens and school outreach activities. Their vision is to see girls being confident to pursue careers in mathematics related fields. And they are also on YouTube, so you can check them, the inspiring interviews of female mathematicians and the great stuff they are doing. My guest for today is also a member of the London Mathematical Society. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest for today is Dr. Angela Tabiri. Hello, Dr. Tabiri.
I even forget I'm a doctor sometimes because I don't use the title.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well. Ghana, I'm a bit warm, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's good to know. And welcome once again, and thank you also for coming.
Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, so today we are talking about studying in the UK, and we want to know. We know that because of the English language, if you are searching for schools, you would want to look at the English-speaking countries. Okay, but why the UK? Why not Australia? Because they also speak English, or America or Canada.
Okay, so growing up, I'd seen a lot about UK universities, and we all will attest to the fact that their institutions of higher learning are world class. So all across the world is one of the top destinations where students want to study. So it's always been a dream, because if you want to study, you would want to study from the best. Yes, so I chose the UK because they have the best institutions. Yeah.
Wow, that's good to know. And has it been worth it, or you wish you had chosen another country?
No, it was a life-changing experience. So you were my colleague in Italy, right? We were both at ICTP, and
Yeah.
and in the UK, a lot of transformation took place. So people who knew me before said I changed when I went to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely because of the environment I found myself in, the support, the training, and the skills I got there. So it's been very worth it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So can you tell us how you found the school that you attended, the University of Glasgow? How did you find the school?
Okay, so it starts from when I was at AIMS Ghana. So at AIMS, we have research projects at the end of the review phases or the courses. So the project I chose was by a lecturer from the University of Glasgow called Ulrich Kramer. So I chose his projects, and afterwards I didn't know what to do, and he recommended that I go to ICTP. So I went to ICTP, and while at ICTP, he went to the in his department. He found an African student, which was very strange because it's hard for us to find funding to study in the UK. So he inquired about it. He knew I wanted to do a PhD, but he told me there wasn't funding for African students. Maybe if you were UK, EU, there was. So he told me about the Schlumberger Foundation Faculty for the Future Fellowship, which supports women in STEM from developing countries to study at top universities abroad and return. So it was through. So I knew I wanted to go to the UK. Admission, I think, is quite okay to get, but it's more about the funding. So once I knew I had the funding, I was applying for, then I did my application for the university. So because it was a PhD, all you needed was a research supervisor. So he was willing to supervise me. Then I think the other important thing was the English language proficiency certificate. So even though Ghana is an English-speaking country, our English is not really recognized in some universities abroad.
Yeah.
So at ICTP, before ICTP, I wrote TOEFL.
Okay.
I wrote TOEFL, so I had to submit that. Then my supervisor sent recommendations. So that was mainly how I got the admission.
Well, so apart from the TOEFL, was there any other requirement?
Okay, so because it was a PhD, they needed to see your master's certificate. So I presented my master's certificate, which I got from Ames. That was because Ames is affiliated to universities. Mine was from the University of Cape Coast, so that was what I applied with. So I think it was mainly the master's certificate, the English proficiency, then the recommendations.
Oh, okay. So are there any secret tips? There are so many people applying, so maybe if there are some tips that we should take note of when we're applying, so that you'll be considered.
It depends. So I'll talk first about PhD. So for PhDs, you first have to have a supervisor. You don't just apply into a PhD program without having a supervisor. So if you don't know,
is it a general thing in the UK or maybe specific to your university?
No, it's general. So if you want to, PhD is research, right? So who do you want to work with? So even if you don't know the people personally, you go to the universities, the department's list of staff. Then you look at the current researchers they have in their research area, and if it's in line with what you want to do, you can contact them. That's okay. I would like to study here, and I would like you to be my PhD supervisor. And once they respond, then so it's very important that you find a PhD supervisor. For me, that's the most critical thing for PhD. But for masters, the focus is also on your personal, let's say, your motivation. So that's more competitive, because for masters, I'm sure most of our audience would like scholarships, and for scholarships too, you need a very strong motivation. Yeah. So if you have these, then I think you are very good to go.
Wow. Thank you. So, as you said, it's not very easy to get a scholarship to study in the UK. And what if someone wants to fund himself or herself? Is that possible?
It's very possible. So even for the PhD, one of I met a Ghanaian colleague who was funding her PhD at the beginning, but later on she got funding. So it's possible to pay even for your PhD in addition to your master's. So master's, you find students who are already paying for their master's. So when you're applying, so very often, okay, so I think I took this out of the process. You also have to indicate your source of funding when you're applying to the university. So you have to state whether
you're scholarship, right?
No, even for both, they will ask you whether you are self-funded or you are sponsored. Yes. So for me, when I was applying for my admission, I was applying for a scholarship. So I put that I was sponsored. But if you are going to pay yourself, then you have to indicate that you are self-funded. Then moving forward, they will have to see some commitment. So for instance, they would like to see some amount in the bank account that you are using, and it should be your bank account or a very close relation. It shouldn't be maybe your uncle. It should be like maybe your dad. It should be your dad, like someone you have maybe the same surname with. Yes, so that's very critical. If you want to fund yourself, you also have to prove that you have the amount of money in your bank account. Yeah.
And roughly how much money do they expect to have?
So it depends, right? So it depends on the universities and the arrangements you have with them. So it's sometimes flexible. So some might ask you to pay maybe 20% upfront, and they'll give you, okay, let's say every month you pay this. So that's what you have to show at the beginning, but others would also want you to pay outright. So it depends. It depends on what the university requires, or you can also negotiate with them which option you would like to. But it's very flexible. It's very flexible.
Okay. So talking about self-funding, what's the cost of living in the UK?
Okay, so it's crazy. So for me, I think on average, both tuition and living expense was about $50,000 a year for the PhD. So tuition was for my PhD each year was about 18,020. But of course, it goes up every year. So I'm sure now it's past £20,000. Then the living expense, when I was a student, it was around £14,000, but now it should be about 15 or 16,000 pounds. So as the year goes by, prices go up, rents
Yeah.
go up, and all that. So these are the factors that go into it. So it's you need at least 50,000 USD to be able to fund both your tuition and your living expenses.
Wow. And is it possible for students to work in the UK?
Yes. So, as an international student, your student your residence permit indicates how many hours you are allowed to work. So it's because you are a full-time student, you're only allowed to work. Okay, so I'll talk about when I was there. Maybe it's changed, but it was 20 hours a week. It's possibly still the same. So it's 20 hours a week. So you can work anywhere, whether in the university environment or but what matters is that you don't exceed the 20 hours a week.
A week. Wow. Okay, let's move to the education system. How different was it from that of Ghana, what you were used to in Ghana?
Okay, so I'll talk about a few things. So, firstly, I'll talk about the focus on understanding. So, yeah, very often we claim we have degrees in certain fields, but when you ask deep questions in it, we struggle to answer them. So, it's not about you and Paul in the UK. At least, okay, for mathematics, you really had to understand the concepts in order to pass. So for my PhD, I had to do coursework for the first year. So for the first year, I had to submit assignments and make sure I passed. And for those, the focus was understanding. Though I see what the definition of this was. No, you really had to understand it. So that's a bit different. But also they focus on skills training. So skills training. So you go to school not only to get a degree in mathematics, but you want a holistic education. So whilst doing your PhD, you are required to take courses every year. So those courses are hence meant to enhance your skills in different things. So, for instance, you have courses in presenting with impact. So, as a researcher, you are supposed to present your research whether at conferences or in a very fun and engaging way. How do you use your voice, your stage presence, and all that to present? So, there's courses on presenting with impact. There's courses on showcasing your research on the web. So, how to build your own website. There's also science communication. How do you communicate your research to the lay public here for them to understand? Yes, so these
Wow.
are very critical skills that I think is sometimes lacking in our system that they emphasize a lot on, because I can now choose to find a job in any of these fields because I have developed those skills whilst I was a PhD student, so that you're not just stuck to just the mathematics that you study, but there are so many other things you can do.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I saw one of your videos where you were trying to explain how to make the cup or something like that with mathematics, and it was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so now I'm a science communicator. I talk about maths to a lay audience, which is something I developed when I was a PhD student. Yeah.
Wow, that's good to know. So I know that you went through AIMS, which is one of the best institutes in Africa, and then you also went through ICTP. So when you went to UK, I'm sure you were already top. But I want to ask you, did you face any challenges during your PhD?
Oh, I think the challenging will be more about you adapting to a new environment and a new educational system. So the environment adapting was mainly about the weather. So I started my PhD in October, and in autumn or fall, that's when it's cold and wet
Yeah.
in Glasgow. It rains every day and there's no sun, so it's very gloomy, and you are wondering what is this. Yeah, so it's more about adapting to it, finding the right clothes and everything to wear, but also adapting to a new educational system. So you don't use the rain as an excuse to not
Mm.
go for lectures. You go through
Yeah.
the rain to go for lectures. You're supposed to submit your assignments on time. You're supposed to meet your supervisor every week and all that. So it's more about you adapting to the new educational system and making sure you excel in it.
Wow. And did you experience any cultural shocks?
Not really. For me, my culture shock was in Italy. So that was where everything happened. I was like, okay, what is this? Yeah, so I saw most of it in Italy. So when I went to the UK, it was
It
more of,
was
hey,
okay.
I've already seen it. Just settle in here. Yes.
Wow. Are there anything that you wish, or are there some things that you wish you knew before moving to the UK?
I think it would have been about the weather. So for me, the weather was a very big shock for me. I went and okay, I thought, yeah, it would be. I knew it would be a bit cold, but I didn't think it would be that cold and wet. So you always had to be in your waterproof jacket, your waterproof boots, and you leave your flat to school, which is, let's say, about 10 minutes walk. It can rain, the sun will shine before you. So it's there can be hailstones. So it's like what, 4 seasons in a day. So I'm like, what is
Yeah.
this? Your heating has to be on the whole year round. I'm like, okay. And whenever it's off, you are cold. Then I remember when we are in the office, the locals, they are used to the weather, so they like
Mm.
to open the window. And I'm, it's winter. Why are you opening the window? The office is supposed to be warm, and you're opening it for the
Yeah.
cold. Yeah. So for me, that was a bit of a challenge initially. Yes.
Wow. How did you overcome all these things?
I think you just have to make up your mind. This is going to be your home for the next 3 or 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's either you are going to adapt to it or be frustrated for the next few
Mm-hmm.
years. So in terms of adapting, I had to get my gears, my waterproof jacket, my boots, and everything in terms of the office. Okay, you try to make adjustments. Okay, if someone wants to open the window, like let them open it a bit. Then maybe after a few minutes, you speak to them. Or can we please close it? So it's more about you adapting. Yes.
Yeah. So, how has these experiences influenced your way of life? But you mentioned that some people are saying that you have changed completely, right?
I
So,
think I've become more outspoken, assertive. So, and at ICTP, even some of the ICTP lecturers say I was just finding my feet. I'm sure you could share the experience. There was a cultural shock, but also you had to struggle mathematically to find your way around. Because so in terms of change, it's more about, see, when you find yourself in an environment where, for me, it was a dream to study in the UK, so it was a dream
Mhm.
come true. I worked with supervisors who I knew who believed in me and my abilities. So that meant I had that support from them. You had people cheering you on. I had my Ghanaian community there. I had my international community there. I had my locals there. So it was more of you finding yourself in an environment where people believe and support you. Then I realized, okay, I had some talents, like for instance, in terms of public speaking, the science
Mhm.
communication thing I used to do. So it's something I like to, I used to do a lot growing up, but I think at some point I lost it. But in Glasgow, because there were the avenues for you to train, there were avenues for you to go on stage to present your research. It gave me the opportunity to enhance these skills. Yeah. So it's
Mm.
more about you finding an environment that will nurture you. Yeah.
And bring the best in you.
Yes.
Okay, great, great, great. So, can you tell us more of the pros and cons of studying in the UK?
Oh, I think the pros for me is that you get a holistic education. Okay, at least for me. So I don't only have my mathematics certificate, but I also have gained a lot of skills. My confidence has improved in a lot of areas. So now I don't only call myself a mathematician, but I call myself a science communicator. I call myself a STEM
Wow.
ambassador because I'm also promoting mathematics out there. Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
the pros are that you finish and everyone sees the difference. So my my family, my sisters always say that anyone who's studied in the UK, there's something unique about them because
Yeah.
you see that yes, they really went through to a good school and they've learned
Training.
something. Yes. So those are the pros, and the disadvantages is that you come back and it's sometimes hard adjusting. You are used to a system where things work, so
Yeah.
you are in an institution where there's constant supply of internet, electricity, there's
Mm-hmm.
water. The taps don't go off. Of course, if you go off, it will be for maybe a very um, serious maintenance that, and even without they will inform you about that. So when you come back, it makes you a bit impatient when things are not going on here well because you want things to go on well. You feel if I'm working in an environment, you want everything to be conducive for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it might not be the same here. So I think you get used to I don't say luxuries. That's when you come back, it's a bit hard adjusting to it, or maybe you get there. It's a bit lonely sometimes. So maybe you're used to doing things all by yourself, being all
Yeah.
by yourself. But when you come home, people expect you to be outgoing. But hey,
You got this
I've
to
been
do.
I can't just open up to you just like that. So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people think you are in quote some way, anti-so or something, but it's not that. Maybe you're being away and being. So when abroad, you don't meet people and greet them on the streets, right?
Yeah.
But here, people expect you to. So so
Hmm.
those are some of the cons of studying in the UK.
Wow, that's good to know. I'm really enjoying this, but unfortunately, we would have to bring it to an end. So, what would be your final words to students who desire to study in the UK? What would you want them to know? The
So
final words.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
say three things. It doesn't matter if you can't afford an education in the UK, you should dream. So for me, when I was in the university, I went for education UK first, even though I knew I couldn't pay for it. So I dreamt of studying in the UK. So I would
Mm-hmm.
ask you, don't restrict yourself to the environment or your economic constraints. Dream beyond your environment. But second, you should believe in that dream. So that was during my undergrad. I had that dream, but I still believed in it even during my national study, during my master's, even at ICT. I still believed in it. And I also found people who believed in that dream. So the people who believed in it were my supervisors. So my supervisor who was my master's supervisor who believed that I could do a PhD. I didn't think I could do a PhD, but he believed in my ability. Then finally I'll say take action. So your dreams will not become a reality if you don't work towards it. So
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, you are not awarded a certificate because you paid tuition fee or because you've enrolled. You have to earn it. So
Yeah.
even from your first year, each year you have to justify why you should proceed to the next year. And in the final thesis defense, you have to prove that you actually wrote the thesis. So you should be able to answer every question in it. So don't just think that your dream will become work very hard towards it and
Oh, I
it
see.
will become
Well, thank you. Just before, because I just thought of this, are there any, or is there any website that I know it's difficult to get a funding there, but is there any site that students who desire can maybe search to see if they can find some scholarships or?
Yes, so I'll talk. So I talked about the Schlumberger Foundation Faculty for the Future. That's for PhD, um, PhD and postdocs. But for masters, you can look at
Mm-hmm.
the Commonwealth. So Commonwealth scholarships. So they
Okay.
have one by the Commonwealth Secretariat, but they also have one with the university. So that's Commonwealth Shared Scholarships. So once you Google
Mm.
Commonwealth Shared Scholarships, you get a list of UK universities where you can study for your masters and you can apply to them. Then the final will be Chevening. So Chevening is also to study in the UK. So with
Mm.
us, you need about 2 years working experience. So if you've worked for about 2 years in Ghana, you can look at the Chevening. So look at the Commonwealth and the Chevening scholarships.
Okay, Dr. Angela Tabiri, thank you so much for your time. And thank you also for watching.
Thanks for the invitation.
Okay. Bye-bye.